Imagine having an army made up not just of humans, but of animals and even supernatural beings. Well, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the epic trials and fascinating traditional narratives surrounding history's most powerful king, Prophet Suleman, also known as Solomon. We're going to unpack an absolutely amazing story of ultimate power, intense divine tests, and profound humility, relying entirely on the details from our source material. Let's jump right in.
So, this brings us to a really compelling question. What actually happens when history's most powerful king loses everything to a devil? We're talking about a leader whose power was completely unmatched. A ruler who didn't just command armies, but literally controlled the wind, spoke to birds, and had supernatural beings, the jinn, at his absolute disposal. Yet, despite having ultimate authority on earth, he faced some deeply humbling tests that challenged everything he thought he commanded.
Part 1. Suleman's Great Empire.
To truly understand the sheer scale of his downfall, we first need to look at the staggering grandeur of his kingdom. It was a literal masterpiece of divine granting. Whenever the morning sun hit the hills of Jerusalem, thousands of birds would actually form a massive canopy in the sky just to give their king shade. And to give you a sense of his daily operations, get this: a staggering 2,020 camels were cooked daily. Why? Because his army of humans, jinn, and animals stretched for miles. It literally took that much food just to feed them for a single meal.
But here is where we see a dramatic contrast. While he sat on a spinning ivory throne embedded with rare emeralds, surrounded by golden trees growing glowing ruby grapes, he didn't take a single coin for himself from the royal treasury. Instead, he lived in personal poverty. He actually earned his own daily food by weaving baskets from date palm leaves and selling them in the market. It's just a stunning display of humility right in the middle of infinite wealth.
Part 2. The Magic Ring and the Devil.
Of course, with such immense blessings came equally immense trials. His entire kingdom was compromised in a single moment, and it all revolved around a miraculous ring that basically held the secret to his earthly dominion. His sudden fall started so simply. Suleman entrusted this ring to his trusted maid, Amana, before washing. A devil seized the opportunity, used magic to take on Suleman's exact appearance and voice, and stole it. The second the devil put that ring on, all of creation obeyed him. So when the real Suleman returned, nobody recognized him. He was thrown out of his own palace. The most powerful king on earth was suddenly a poor, unrecognized fisherman living on the coast, surviving on just 2 fish a day for 40 brutal days.
But you might be wondering, why exactly 40 days? Well, the source material tells us this exile wasn't just a random stroke of bad luck. It was a highly specific divine test. It turns out that, totally without Suleman's knowledge, one of his wives had secretly created an idol of her father. She had been worshipping it right there in his household for exactly 40 days. So the 40-day loss of his kingdom was a direct divine reprimand for what was happening unknowingly under his own roof. Part 3. The throne return after 40 days.
Back at the palace, people were getting really suspicious of this usurping devil. When the 40 days ended, the devil panicked, feared discovery, and just chucked the magical ring straight into the sea. Now picture this scene on the coast. The exiled king is sitting quietly by the river, getting ready to prep his meager daily wage, a single fish. As he cuts it open, his fingers brush against something cold and hard. It's the ring. The very ring the devil threw into the sea had been swallowed by this exact fish. The moment he slips it back onto his finger, the earth literally shakes. The birds instantly swarm to shade him, the wind embraces him, and the jinn immediately realize their true master has returned.
This incredible return sparked a really fascinating philosophical conversation between Suleman and his vizier, Asif bin Barkia. They started discussing the hoopoe bird, or the hudhud. The hudhud has this miraculous ability to see water hidden deep underground, but strangely enough, it can't see a hunter's net covered by a thin layer of dust right before it lands in it. Suleman explains this paradox brilliantly. When divine destiny or fate arrives, even the sharpest eyes are totally blinded. You simply cannot outplan destiny.
Part 4. Horses and the sun returning.
And that core concept, divine destiny blinding human foresight, leads us perfectly into his next major test. Suleman had inherited 1,000 pristine, 3-legged standing horses. These weren't your average horses. They were incredibly swift and wholly dedicated to the path of God. One evening, he was so completely captivated by inspecting them that he just lost track of time. Suddenly, he realized the sun had set, which meant he accidentally missed his late afternoon prayer. He was completely devastated. This led to a profound miracle known as Radd-e-Shams.
The traditions tell us that God miraculously returned the sun from below the horizon back into the sky, extending the daylight just so Suleman could perform his ablutions and offer his prayer on time.
Now, we absolutely have to clear up a major misconception here. There's a popular myth out there suggesting that Solomon, in a fit of anger over missing his prayer, actually slaughtered all of those horses. But our source material strongly refutes this. Scholars clarified that a prophet would never commit that kind of cruelty against innocent animals. Instead, the text reveals that he lovingly washed and massaged their legs and necks as an act of care, recognizing them as noble creatures dedicated to a higher purpose.
Part 5. The final test with the angel of death.
The trials for this mighty king still weren't over, and this final test was deeply personal. One night, Suleman declared he would visit his 70 wives so that each one would give birth to a warrior son to fight for the divine cause. But he forgot to say a single, absolutely vital phrase, Insha'Allah, meaning if God wills. Because of this tiny human oversight, relying solely on his own intent rather than divine will, only one wife conceived, and tragically, she gave birth to an incomplete, fragile child.
Suleman deeply, deeply loved this fragile child. But one day in his court, he noticed the angel of death, appearing in human form, just staring intensely and strangely at the baby. Suleman was terrified. He instantly asked the angel if he was there to take the child's soul, but the angel just stayed silent. Driven by pure fatherly desperation, Suleman asked the ultimate question. Can anyone actually hide from the angel of death? Frantic, he summoned his jinn and demons to find a place that was completely out of reach.
And right here is where human planning tragically collides with destiny once again. A devil offered some seemingly clever yet deeply flawed advice. He said to hide the child high up in the sky, deep within a thick cloud where no one on earth could ever reach him. Suleman trusted this advice. He commanded the wind to carry his beloved baby up into the absolute safety of the clouds.
But he had no idea of the heartbreaking irony of what he'd just done. You see, the angel of death had been staring at the child in the court out of pure confusion. God had commanded the angel to take the child's soul up in the clouds. So the angel was looking at the baby wondering, how on earth is this child going to get all the way up there? By trying to save his son, Suleman had personally delivered him to the exact appointed place of his death. In a highly dramatic and humbling climax, a clap of thunder echoed, and the lifeless body of the child fell from the clouds directly onto Suleman's spinning throne.
The stark reality just crashed down on him right then and there. Sheer earthly power, magic rings, and the most elaborate planning in the world simply cannot outwit divine will. Ultimately, he dropped to his knees in repentance, praying, "My Lord, forgive me, and grant me a kingdom such as will not belong to anyone after me." It leaves us with a really provocative thought to wrap up this explainer. If history's most powerful king, a man who quite literally commanded the wind and the jinn, was utterly powerless before divine destiny, how should we view the fragile, worldly control we think we hold today? Thank you so much for exploring this remarkable narrative with us, and we'll catch you in the next explainer.